Mr. President, as we have heard all day today is Equal Pay Day. What does that mean? That means that today is the first day women in the workforce, if we separated male workers and female workers, this is the first day women would actually get a paycheck in the year. Pretty remarkable, and it's a disparity that we have been working on for decades in this country, but still have not achieved the parity that we believe is absolutely essential if we are going to be a family-friendly, a forward-looking country, and certainly a country with a growing and prosperous middle class. I think way too often the issue of pay equity, the issue of equal pay, is characterized as a women's issue. It's characterized as something that only elite women care about. It's characterized as something that is not something for government to address. Well, I'm here to dispel all of those myths. I think we can only fairly say that by shortchanging women, employers are also shortchanging working families. And families could use a full salary to put food on their table for their families or to make sure children get the medical care that they deserve. We've all heard the stark statistic that women only earn 97% nationally of what white non-Hispanic males are paid. In North Dakota, the numbers are even more dramatic. The pay equity there is 71%. Of women may earn just 71% of what men make in my state. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable at a time when, according to a recent study from Pew Research Center, women are now the leading solo breadwinners in 40% of households. That compares to just 11% in 1960. It does not make sense that we are still struggling to make the same amount for the equal work as what men make. Additionally, in North Dakota, 74% of children live in households where both parents work. Those parents both need to work to be able to support their families. When women don't make as much as men, it doesn't just hurt them, but it hurts their children and it hurts families across the country. So what is Congress to do about this disparity? We need to pass paycheck fairness. We need to make sure that that critical piece of legislation which responds to this concern is actually in our laws and is in the statutes of the United States of America. So what does paycheck fairness do? It would help close the pay gap by taking critical steps to empower women to negotiate for equal pay. I can't tell you the number of times I hear from women in my state, well, I just didn't know that I wasn't getting paid what a man was getting paid. And an employer saying, well, you know, she didn't ask and he did. I think that we need to be able to give the tools to women so that they know when there's disparate treatment. We need to close the loopholes that the courts have created in the law. We need to create strong incentives for employers to obey the laws that are in place, and we need to strengthen federal outreach and enforcement efforts. But looking at pay is really only one part of the equation. We also need to pass other family-friendly policies like the Family Act, which would establish a federal leave policy, paid leave policy. Now, I can only imagine what the debate was in this body when someone came up with the idea that we ought to do employment insurance. I'm sure there was a lot of discussion about yet another program, yet another system that would actually add to payroll tax, add to burdens put on families. Who today in this body would propose that we eliminate unemployment insurance? It has been a valuable transition opportunity for our workers to look for that next job without disrupting their family payment. As a person whose father was a seasonal construction worker, I know how critical that benefit was to my family growing up. I know that frequently the opportunity to earn unemployment was in fact put food on the table in my household. So let's talk about what happens when someone has a baby. Let's talk about what happens when someone's mom gets sick. Let's talk about what happens when we have catastrophic illness of our own. Many people in my state, in fact, the majority of people in my state, do not have 1 day of paid leave. So their choice is to take care of their family's health conditions, to take care of their newborn child, and just quit their job, or to go on unpaid leave and not actually receive a salary. How many people can go on unpaid leave and not receive a salary? Not a lot. And so what it means is that frequently when people have to transition away from work, all of a sudden that person qualifies for food stamps, qualifies for Medicaid, qualifies for other government assistance programs. This for the price to an employer of a cup of coffee a week, $1.50 a week per employee, we can provide this benefit. And how do we know we can provide this benefit? Because we have states who have done it. California, which restricted their payment to families who would go use this insurance benefit, restricted, I believe, to 50%. They recently upped that amount to 70%. This bill would put it at 66%. And so the Family Act is also a critical piece of legislation that moves our employment economy into the 21st century. It actually recognizes that women are in the workplace, and they're in the workplace for real and permanently. It recognizes that when we have family-friendly policies, we have a better workforce, we have a more economical workforce, and we have an opportunity for employers to keep their businesses. Recently in North Dakota, Senator Gillibrand and I traveled around the state talking about our paid leave policy and the Family Act. And we were in a small business, someone with less than 10 employers. He said he'd love to provide this benefit, but there's no way he could economically afford it if it happened to his employee. There's no way he could give this benefit and also hire a temporary worker. But if he had the opportunity to share that risk broadly across all small employers in the country, that shared risk then would make this benefit available to him. And he could keep his employees. He could keep those employees that he trained. He could make sure that they were better employees when they came back because they had that benefit. And so we need to understand that this isn't just about the girls. This isn't just about the women of the Senate standing up. It's about a shared experience that we've all had. A shared experience of having to choose between going home and taking care of your mother or actually feeding your family. That's not much of a choice. And when we look at why people are angry in America today, why they feel like they're not getting ahead, is because they're falling further and further behind because we aren't adopting 21st century policies like the Family Act, like equal pay for equal work, like recognizing the value of what women do. I'm going to close with a story, and it's true. When I was in college, I spent the first year between my freshman and my sophomore year, I was a nanny. It was very rewarding. I loved the kids, but it was hard work, and it was 24/7. And so the next years after I did that, I worked construction. You know why I worked construction? I got paid better, and the work was not as difficult. So I worked in a factory cleaning pipes. I worked on road construction. I worked on rural water construction. And yes, that's hard work, and I was a laborer in all those jobs. That's hard work, but none of it is as hard as taking care of children, as taking care of sick people, as taking care of our elderly. But yet in America, those jobs pay less. They pay less. And so it's time that we really evaluate what's happening in the workplace, what's happening for America's families, so that we can adopt these family-friendly policies, so that we can, in fact, listen to our constituents, so that we can have empathy for the challenges of American families. When that empathy finds its way to public policy, in the halls of Congress, people will feel once again reconnected to their government. So I really encourage everyone who hasn't taken a look at pay equity, hasn't taken a look yet at the Family Act, to really understand and appreciate what this can do for their constituents, what this can do for the American workplace, and how we can help small business provide the services that they need to provide, the benefits that they need to provide to be competitive in this very competitive workforce environment. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would yield the floor